And we're back with another episode of Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors. I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and we are going to talk about climbing mountains. And these are metaphorical mountains, because I'm in no shape today to talk about climbing real mountains, because if you see video, you can see that there's crutches behind me. If you're in Kansas City or if you're my friend on social media, you'll probably see that I'm recovering from knee surgery. So let's just call this a metaphorical mountain. And I like using analogies. It kind of helps me when I use analogies that are outside of business and then I apply them to business. It helps me frame things in a way that make things more manageable or digestible for me. So hopefully you like kind of the analogies that I use, because I'm going to use this analogy of my recovery from my knee injury. So, quick just synopsis. Let's say over the summer, I started having IT band issues, or at least that's what they thought. I sought out counsel of an orthopedic surgeon. We decided surgery wasn't really the best course at the beginning of my treatment. So I was doing physical therapy, and it was okay, right? I'm a competitive martial artist. So I went to my very first competition September 16th to compete as a black belt. And I just injured it more at that tournament. We'll just leave it at that. I was sparring and something bad happened. So this led me to having to have surgery. It's really the only path forward. And, when I started to assess this surgery and take in this news and frankly just grieve some stuff, because I knew that, my season was over. I knew it was going to be disruptive to my business, my family, just a variety of other things, because I'm a busy dude. I rarely am in one place at one time for very long. And once I got past that initial news and I heard things like, hey, it's going to be almost a year before you're doing combat sports again, I grieved that. And then I started doing, the assessment of what the work is going to be to get back to somebody who could compete for a world championship in, Taekwondo for sparring. I'm like, what does that take? And, I was left with a plan, basically. I got a piece of paper. And frankly, this piece of paper was a little bit overwhelming as well. I got this sheet. It showed what my full year was going to look like. It showed kind of some general milestones. And frankly, it was a little overwhelming. Okay. Because that was my Everest. That one piece of paper was literally my Everest. Okay. To get from point A to point B. So where I am today to where I want to go, here's what it looks like. Here's the work that's going to be required. It was just very overwhelming. So I started physical therapy this week. I am very blessed. I'm recording this my 8th day after surgery. So 5 days after surgery, I was, going to work and things like that. And I am very blessed in the fact that I did get to start physical therapy within a few days after surgery, because I know that's not always the case for certain injuries. So I'm super thankful for that. Moreover, I'm thankful for my physical therapist, Kyle, and something that I'm sure he says to every patient, but it made it so that my Everest was conquerable. It made it so that climbing my mountain was something that I knew I could do. And it was very simple. I handed him the sheet and he said, hey, this is awesome. We're going to put you, this is obviously stuff that we're aiming for. We're going to put you through our own programming, because that's kind of milestones the surgeon gave me. And we started to work. And one of the things that they did was they measured my leg to see how many degrees of extension that I am lacking to be able to get it straight. And he told me, hey, it's like 5 degrees removed of being able to straighten my leg. And he said, that's your first goal. He goes, our first goal for you is to be able to straighten your leg. And I'm like, okay, I have a milestone. I know what my first goal is. And I started thinking about mountain climbers. Mountain climbers probably, through their, altimeters, whatever it would device it tell you, or maybe it's your phone, tells you what your altitude is. My assumption is, because I've never climbed a mountain, that they have milestones that they're passing as they're climbing this mountain. And I think all of this applies to where we want to go with our businesses. When we're thinking about, let's just say this is Q4 and we're thinking about establishing goals for 2024. Let's use that as an example. Maybe your Everest is to get to 50 units or 100 units or however many locations. That's your Everest. It's a stretch goal, something like that. Well, If you're smart, you'll digest that down to like more achievable bite-sized goals that you can actually accomplish. Maybe it's a monthly goal, maybe it's a weekly goal, maybe it's just, hey, moving the needle X amount to, hit this milestone, and that milestone is worth celebrating. And then, next thing you know, after doing the work, rinse, repeat, showing up, doing the work, doing more of the work, redoing the work, next thing you know, you've climbed your mountain. And so I think that when we're thinking about big goals, Jim Collins, I've got the book here. Let's see here. Great by Choice and Good to Great. He talks about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. BHAGs. Nobody creates a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, without, or at least maybe the person, let's use Elon Musk, he'll create big, hairy, audacious goals. I'm reading his biography right now by Walter Isaacson. By the way, very highly recommended. It's a thick book. It's about as long as the Steve Jobs book, but it goes way quicker because they're short chapters, lots of pictures, great book. But anyway, when Elon establishes a big, hairy, audacious goal, he's not the guy who's actually he is kind of the guy who gets in the weeds when things get stuck. But he's not the guy who's like establishing those little small milestones. He's like setting the big vision for the organization, right? And then the team members will then go break it down into smaller individual goals that can be established, maybe daily goals, maybe weekly goals, maybe monthly goals. The next thing you know, hey, we do have a shot of, going to Mars, or hey, we did, create an opportunity for us to go to space again, the United States. So all sorts of things that, when a visionary sets big goals or an organization sets big goals, that's super important. It's aspirational, but then we've got to break it down into achievable little bite-sized things so that, inch by inch, we're getting closer to our goal, but we're also not giving up on our goal because we are making progress. And furthermore, we're celebrating those little milestones that we achieve. So hopefully that helps you. I know that those types of things definitely help me. They help me, particularly when I look back and I'm like, hey, we haven't done enough in our business or whatever. And I'm like, well, hold on. If we look back, going to another book, if we look at the gap and the gain and we measure our success based on where we've come in our journey versus where we're headed, it can provide a lot of appreciation and gratitude and help fuel your tank. Because at the end of the day, that's all we have is the energy to allocate to these projects. And the fuel for that is upstairs in your head. So there you go. Until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham. Hope you have a phenomenal week and be well.